Welcome to Day 2 DevOps, where the DevOps is in the details. I'm Ned Bellavance, and with me is my effervescent co-host, Kyler Middleton. Hey, Kyler.
Hey, Ned. Today on this sponsored episode of Day 2 DevOps, we're talking with Itamar Rotem and Ofer Regev from Faddom about how they're re-envisioning what application dependency mapping and infrastructure inventory can be in the era of cloud and hybrid IT.
For those of us who have had to deal with old school, heavyweight CMDB solutions, Faddom's got a fresh take on things. But don't just take my word for it. Let's explore what they have to offer with Itamar and Ofer. Welcome, gentlemen. We're very excited to have you on the show. Let's start with the big question. Why does Faddom exist? Every company, has an origin story. Why don't you start with yours?
So originally, I think it was take about more years than I'd like to admit. Previous company I worked at, the big thing back then, by Gartner and all that was service-oriented architecture, the SOA that everyone was going to do. It didn't necessarily take off. I mean, it did evolve eventually into Kubernetes and things like that. But back then, that was what everyone was talking about. And we were working on kind of building a map or kind of mapping every click in an application UI to what happens on the back end, which Java functions are called, which .NET functions are called. So we were really trying to kind of map, because the idea was, you could take all that and maybe extract a service out of that and make that generalized so that it can be used by lots of different applications in the business. And that's how it started. And again, that whole notion didn't really take off, and that company no longer exists. But the idea, I think that it started there, where I'm like, okay, if we want to map all the software behind something, what about mapping in real time? What happens in terms of servers? Where's all the data going? And that's kind of where the idea started. And it's evolved a lot over the years till eventually Faddom is kind of bringing that idea to life.
100%. I agree with Ofer, by the way. I think visibility is key. When the main problem is in hybrid infrastructure is that you can't protect what you can see, but you cannot document. You cannot follow different types of regulation and compliance. And that's where Faddom excels, in mapping everything into one unified view of all the dependencies regardless of the infrastructure.
You started with that service-oriented architecture, which is tracking services and what they connect to and where requests are going. Then kind of focused a little bit further out on infrastructure, but it sounds like your main thing that you're focused on is application dependency mapping between different resources and how that corresponds to your infrastructure inventory.
Again, I've been in IT space for a long time, and
don't be humble, Ofer. You're the brain behind everything.
Yeah, but
you have a passion for it since you were a kid, I think.
I think pretty much everyone in IT is aware of the scream test,
right?
Where you shut down a server and then you kind of listen to see, hey,
who shouts?
Did that break anything? It's like, okay, maybe. In modern IT, there's no reason for that to actually happen. You can know all those mails that people used to send, hey, this application is going down for maintenance. Why do you have to send it to everyone when you can? It shouldn't be too hard to know what it's going to affect kind of in a more direct manner, instead of having to go and broadcast it. And if you know what it's going to affect, then you can plan for it.
So I actually have a funny story about application dependency mapping and not being aware of where your infrastructure is. A buddy of mine worked for this small company, and they had one server that was serving up DNS, and it was under somebody's desk, just plugged in under someone's desk. Small company, right? And eventually he moved to a different desk, and they replaced that desk with a closet and just left the server in that closet. And then one day someone went in the closet and unplugged it, plugged something else in, and their DNS went down for everybody. And it took them like 2 hours to figure this out. So knowing where your application dependencies are and where your infrastructure is, that's pretty important.
Yeah, I think so too. And we try not to put them in the closet, I think it's not a good place to hide them, right?
It's kind of amazing that today, especially, it's gotten probably a lot more difficult to keep track of this later. Because back when all servers were physical, losing track of a server would be harder, but everything's virtual. It could be in the cloud. It can be on a VM. They can move around keeping track of everything when it's more dynamic, it makes it much more harder.
And I also think that when you talk to different organizations, it doesn't matter the size. Like if they're relatively small, that's a different issue. But as long as they go big and they go cloud and they go hybrid and they go on-prem and they have some legacy servers behind, so things even get more and more complex because so many people have their knowledge inside their minds and they cannot really utilize that into handing it over to
tribal knowledge
is key. Especially, don't talk about M&As, which is probably the biggest use case that we experience when people try to take over a company and start to understand what's going on in the IT infrastructure. So we try to help with that.
I think the cloud is in many cases less of an issue because most of the companies that are
born to the cloud,
they're born to the cloud, or those that have done migration. There's a lot more tools for visibility in the cloud. There's lots of products that do mapping around the cloud as well.
Right.
The hybrid part is where it really
gets messy.
It gets messy. It gets complicated, especially if you're looking at legacy systems and on-premise data centers. The guy who wrote the application, probably retired quite a while ago, and no one really knows what his code does, and everyone's afraid to touch it because they don't know what it's going to break. Yeah.
It's an interesting situation we've all found ourselves in because we had the closets of the on-prem for a while and we had no visibility, and then we have the cloud and you have almost all visibility into your infrastructure. And then we put Kubernetes in the cloud because we got tired of being able to see what was going on all the time. And now we can't tell what's going on anymore. So it's like, I don't know, maybe we yearn for the invisibility.
Hide everything under the rug so no one can see the mess.
Is this a tool that can help you go discover what's in your Kubernetes? If I'm in the cloud with the Kubernetes environment, does this tool help me kind of peek inside and see what's really going on?
Yeah, definitely. On Kubernetes, though, I think one of the challenges that we saw with Kubernetes when you want to map something, it's, you take cloud environments or on-premise that we say they're dynamic, but Kubernetes is, it's that up 10 times. Everything is changing much faster. And if you tried to map dependencies between pods or containers in Kubernetes, you'd probably get lost really quickly because it's going to change all the time. So what we've done is we're mapping the dependencies between the services in Kubernetes. So, the services in general, it's code. So they're not going to change dynamically unless someone pushes a version update or something like that. And that's where I think mapping the dependencies between the services can really help understand what's going to break if I update this service or I'm going to take it down. I think that makes Faddom could be interesting for DevOps teams, who need to manage Kubernetes also to understand dependencies between services as well.
That sounds wonderful. I love that part of this. Ned and I talk about Terraform all the time because it's just the lingua franca of infrastructure. But I love that dependency graph that you're able to see this depends on this to build the thing. But you sort of lose that within Kubernetes. So any tool that could give me that kind of visibility, that sounds really useful to me.
Yeah, so I don't know if there are, I'm pretty sure there are tools that could do something for Kubernetes, but I think where Faddom kind of really shines is when you've got a mix, which most environments do.
I think that we don't see our client base as of today, they are not necessarily just born to the cloud. Sometimes they have adopted the cloud on the go over time, and Kubernetes is the same thing, same story. And we try to evaluate what is needed in the market, what our customer wants, and what keeps them busy at night or afraid that something will break. So we try to give this visibility also for Kubernetes, but we're also working on, I think it's worth mentioning here that we are in a research for just mapping platforms as a service as in general, like from Azure functions to Lambdas to S3 buckets, just to get a better understanding and granularity of the dependency mapping for cloud infrastructure as well, because we see it coming more and more. Even though we see use cases of people migrating back to on-prem, we have a few customers like that as well. That's also worth mentioning.
We do, but Faddom was probably born more for the on-premise environment, and we've got good support for that, and of course for IaaS environments as well. And for all the PaaS services, we are improving support daily, so we're adding more and more features to map additional PaaS services as well.
Yeah, I think that's where at least some of the more traditional CMDBs fall down, is being able to support dynamic environments that change a lot and also support these newer services. I'm going to be honest. Anybody I talk to who's responsible for managing the CMDB cringes when you mention it. Like they don't really enjoy that portion of things.
The problems with them is that they collect too much data. I was at a ServiceNow conference recently, and people would come by our booth and say, I have 80 million assets in my CMDB, and we just had a project. Now we managed to get it down to 20 million, but they don't have nearly that many servers or something. It's just that CMDBs catalog everything, and sometimes having too much data is just as bad as having none because it's just a lot of noise. CMDBs originally tried to catalog every single thing, not just a computer, but every single component of it. And it's too much data and it's really hard to keep track of. And I think CMDBs, a lot of what they're trying to do, it adds too much noise and makes it really hard to manage.
Yeah, and I think that we also experienced the need for a lightweight CMDB, which is something that we really believe it's a good phrasing here, and it's not like it's not something bad about our product being precise, being accurate. And the biggest use case that we see around it is the noise. When users don't feel confident in, I won't mention any vendors, but you mentioned ServiceNow, for example, because we were at a conference, but it's not only ServiceNow, even though they're the largest ones. So they experience the fact that they don't feel confident and they don't have a single source of truth for validating their data, to see the actual dependencies, to update the CIs accordingly in a way which is real time.
Almost no one is happy with their CMDB implementation.
Right, but real time is key here, and we feel it all the time. We're not scan-based solution, and that's key for them to know the critical infrastructure, the dependencies, the impact, to raise incidents in their CMDB based on that. So these are I think the points that we try to address initially when we did, for example, an integration or build our module for lightweight CMDB.
Yeah, to get the critical data, but not too much of it. Just enough to understand what you need to understand.
Yeah.
Well, that raises an interesting point. How do you determine what's critical and what isn't? Because like you mentioned, old school CMDBs, they just harvested everything because they couldn't differentiate what was critical and what wasn't. So you'd end up like this version of .NET was cataloged on this server, and you're like, I don't need to know that unless you do. So how do you figure out what's critical for a customer versus what can be ignored or doesn't need to be part of the catalog?
We started off with something that was very thin, I guess. That's where we started, just servers. And as more features requests came in from our customers, we've been adding more layers to that, whether it's software discovery. People they are interested in knowing, okay, there's traffic on port 80, but what kind of web server is that? So we have added layers, and it's also built like that in Faddom, where the maps try to show you the core dependencies. And you can drill down if you want, but all the views are not focused around that. So it's got to be a little less cluttered. Try to have things organized in a way that makes sense. That's where we have the ability to build maps, application maps of the servers that are interacting with each other, and that's where the real-time dependencies are important, because just having a list of all the servers doesn't help with anything.
Yeah, it's not just like exporting an inventory of what Faddom can detect. It's all about importing the right amount of data, the more precise one, based on the business application maps that Faddom builds automatically for the user. So once a user, for example, starts his journey with Faddom, he starts a discovery, connects all the data source, on-prem, cloud, load balancer, it doesn't matter. And then we classify those assets into business application maps based on the connectivity, the traffic, what we consider as an application map. So you get context right away. And if someone wants to use it, to utilize this data, to show it, to document it properly in their CMDB, so that's the most accurate data that we can provide with the right context of a business application map. What is actually critical for the day-to-day operations? And it doesn't mean we cannot add more things to it or more layers to it, but this is the initial integration, for example, with ServiceNow was all about how we can show dependency mapping in real time, not like their module, for example, which is great, but it's scan-based. It's not real time. Only on the critical infrastructure, only on the critical business operation application maps. And that's where we we decided to start with, and so far we have very good success with it. We partner with ServiceNow even.
I think that the idea is also almost all our data is runtime data. We're not reading configuration. It's not it could do this, or this server might access this in some configuration. We're looking at the actual real time, what is actually happening. If you try to read a configuration file, you may have a dependency on something on that file, but who knows if that file is even read or used anywhere.
Right.
So all the data we collect is all based on what we actually see working. Even the feature we have where we can find SSL certificates, that's not based on finding certificates that are on the computer as in files. It's looking at the actual traffic and saying, okay, this certificate has actually been used right now by this server, and it's using it's an expired, or it's using an old version, or that's I think where we're trying to we're looking at not the declarative data. I guess we're looking at the actual what is actually happening at runtime.
That's interesting. So you can start from an application perspective and say, give me a list of the infrastructure that we're depending on for this application to work.
I would say easier nowadays when we launched Compass AI, which is our AI infrastructure query chat. I would say that you can actually ask things in plain language, complex queries that sometimes we don't have a dedicated screen for each feature, but you can combine multiple sources of information from Faddom, trying to get precise answers right from the chat, which is, in my opinion, pretty cool. So far, we get great feedback. So we look forward to see what our customers will achieve with that.
Faddom is also built as an on-premise solution. It's not a SaaS solution. And all the customer data, it remains on the customer side. It remains on their server in their database. And we never get that back. And even with our new AI model, the model is hosted on our servers. But the way it's built is they will ask it a question, and it will answer kind of with, hey, you can find that in these database tables. And then they will see the results, but we will never get their data.
Right.
So even our AI chat, it will never get the customer's data back to us. And that's how we can remain
on-prem, practically on-prem.
And secure. You don't have to worry about data leakage because your data is never leaving your environment.
Right.
Now, actually getting that data into the system, when you're talking about being able to capture all of this real-time information, my first assumption is you're using an agent.
No, we're not. We're not an agent-based solution. So that's pretty interesting, unique out there. I'm not saying that we won't do an agent in the near future. I don't know. But as of today, it's not really needed for what we wanted to achieve.
All the information we collect today is collected without agents. And I think we kind of combine the best of both worlds. There is data that you still need to access a server to get information on. I mean, you're not going to get information on which software is installed on a server by listening for it to tell you that.
Right.
So for that, so you could install an agent, or you can ask it once in a while. And software, I guess it's fine to ask it once in a while because that's not something that changes all the time. But on the other hand, to get dependency information, if you're doing that on once a day or once a week schedule, you're going to miss something. Even on, you've got a backup server that runs at night. You have, production traffic, which is different and during different hours of the day. And you need that data needs to come in real time. And of course, there's agents that do that. But we've combined getting that from the network combined with scheduled scans for the more static data.
Right. And I think that this is where Faddom really excels in getting all the traffic in real time without any agents. We utilize network statistic protocols from flow logs, IPFix, NetFlow, SFlow, to try to combine everything into a single map, hybrid map that shows all the dependencies and the connections in real time, while combining some scanning approach like Ofer mentioned for software discovery, which is something we don't feel that should be run at all times 24/7. It can be run periodically per the user's requirements and configuration. So that's how we do it as of today.
Okay. So as long as I can get a hold of flow logs or some similar equivalent for network traffic, I would be able to use the Faddom solution in my environment. So that means you support all the public clouds, or at least the ones that have that network capture capability, as well as on-prem?
All sorts of data sources from all the major providers in the hypervisor domain. So from VMware, Nutanix, Hyper-V, and in the cloud, all the major cloud providers, GCP is supported, AWS, Azure. So yeah, there are no limitations, and we're constantly updating our data sources per the requirements we're getting.
And there is even an agent that we have. It's not commonly
don't say
used.
It, Ofer. Come on, don't expose all the secrets.
We have it as an option. We have seen.
Just ruined my pitch.
We got requests from them to add in. For example, clients who have their environment hosted on a third party,
right,
and they don't have access to the infrastructure. They can't configure the switches to get NetFlow. They don't have access to vCenter.
Like an MSP, somebody's managing their environment.
They've got they have someone managing their, maybe a VMware instance, but they don't have access to it. They just, can I give me 10 servers? And for them, they can't enable NetFlow or anything because they don't have access to that.
Right.
So for that, we do have an agent that they can distribute. But it still works in a similar way to how we do it. It's a very lightweight agent that doesn't give us access into the machine. It just generates S-flow traffic and sends it to us.
Yeah. But this is for the edge cases. I think that modularity and agility is something that we believe in. We don't want to lose any customer or him not being or her not being able to send us the required data.
We want no blind spots. I think that's kind of
that's key. But it's the edge case. We have only, I can count on my one hand how many customers are using
we don't have
edge.
many using it. But.
Yeah. So yeah, my pitch remains.
You mentioned source of truth, and that's one of those things that gets debated about a lot, is like, what is the source of truth? And it sounds like for you folks, the source of truth is what's actually happening on your servers in your network, not what's in your config files or what's in your CMDB. So that whatever you're using to track that has to reflect that as a source of truth. Yeah, I think in general, is that sort of how you're thinking about it?
Is that on almost every trial period, our product, by the way, is very lightweight in terms of the experience. It's very fast. So usually we get some comments, hey, this can be true. Like this server cannot be communicating with this server. This is blocked in the firewall. There's got to be an issue with Faddom. And we say, no, this is an actual traffic. So you should rely on this data because we see it. And then when they go to validate that, they actually see that Faddom was right. And it's not about us, it's about the network. It's about our analysis that we see it. So you should trust the traffic. You should trust what we're able to analyze.
I usually tell them, we don't invent traffic. We're not making up connections. These are real.
Right. This is real. And if you want to rely on that to take decisions or to define application maps or to set up your policies within Faddom even, you want to be alerted on detected external traffic that is not allowed to be on a blacklist country to align with your own regulations and compliance and set it up in Faddom just to be alerted. That's key because traffic doesn't lie. And so is our product because we rely on traffic. Mm-hmm.
So if I am on an operations team, let's say, what are some of the use cases that I would bring?
Use cases I think are important.
For?
I think we mentioned before, like CMDBs, or CMDB that it didn't really have a use case. It was just a database to collect everything and put it in one place. There wasn't really a use case around that. That I think we're having a difference between a product and a technology.
Right.
Because a product will, it comes there for use cases. But product, all that Itamar talked about, product and use cases.
So I think the main use cases are, first of all, discovery, just knowing the inventory. We meet lots of customers that are hiring multiple teams just to keep the documentation accurate to some extent, right? Just to keep documenting everything. So first of all, know what you have. Later on, we do change management. You want to keep track of all the changes. You want to be alerted on the most critical infrastructure, or for the cyber operations, I would say more about the crown jewels and different vulnerabilities that Faddom is also able to detect. And once you do that, you can learn the impact. For example, if I want to shut down a server for maintenance, what would be the impact? Like the scream test Ofer mentioned in the beginning. We like to eliminate scream test, and it's not just a buzzword. We usually go to conferences and we put those pins, or we put it on the roll. How to say it? The roll up.
The backdrop.
Yeah, exactly. So you put this slogan there, like eliminating screen test, and it makes people laugh because they can understand what is happening when I don't know what would be the impact when I have to take decisions on the day-to-day operations. So I think these are the main use cases.
Also, migration is a big one.
That's the third one I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
Please go.
Cloud migration, not just to the cloud, but data center migrations in general, whether moving...
Modernization. You can call it modernization. That's a good title.
I mean, we've seen a lot of traffic around migrating from VMware to other vendors recently with lots of...
you can say which vendors we work with.
We work a lot with Nutanix, sure. But it's not. It's new, but there's lots of others. I mean,
I'm just kidding.
VMware have added a lot of instability to the market, especially on the mid-size market, where they're kind of pushing them out, and a lot are looking for alternatives. But migrating IT infrastructure is not easy, especially because when you're going to move something, you're going to break something. So we have an entire module designed around understanding dependencies of an application. Giving you sizing, giving you a cost estimate, kind of just helping you plan step by step to move servers.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth mentioning as Ofer mentioned right now, the optimization to do right sizing, since Faddom analyzes all the traffic in real time. So we also help with right sizing for both on-prem in terms of saving resources within the environment, or to recommend you to switch to different instance types on the major cloud providers, because we can actually save money. And we show exactly our recommendations. So that's key for our users. And maybe the last use case, I would say, before cyber is a big topic. We can definitely have another episode on cyber. But probably microsegmentation is key for us as well in Faddom, because we help with the planning.
It's part of the migration as well. We've heard a lot of issues of migrating microsegmentation policies between vendors is very difficult, especially when you could have a whole mess there. And a lot of times it's easier to just build it from scratch.
Yeah, if you're switching from NSX to some other microsegmentation architecture, there's a lot buried in there that you're going to have to discover and map to whatever I don't know Nutanix super well, but I'm assuming they have a similar SDN solution for that. Mapping between those two.
I think even trying to map between the two is probably... The feature set might not be identical either. So you may not even be able to map it one-to-one. And in many cases, just rebuilding it would make more sense.
Right.
But that could be very complicated unless you have full visibility. And we're actually working on integration currently with Nutanix Flow specifically.
To how Faddom can actually build those policies within our system and push them into Flow so they can do the enforcement of those rules within Flow. So Faddom remains non-intrusive while giving them the visibility that is required for assessment and planning for migrating different policies, or even planning from scratch to do microsegmentation, which is an ongoing project. It's not like a migration that has different phases, but sometimes it should end.
And also microsegmentation, but also even regular segmentation and firewall rules, even just managing them. We have a whole view where you can see all the different environments. Like you have a production environment, your dev environment, your test environment, and the amount of times that someone sees, hey, why is my test environment talking to production? And that happens.
Don't mention them. We also have.
I'm not going to mention them by name,
but we also have user access detection features. So
you can see who did that.
Yeah, you can know who to blame, but we don't encourage that.
But now we've got a whole screen detector. You're dedicated to that. You can click on the connection and see. Okay, wait, no, that's not supposed to be there. But one thing I'm surprised you haven't mentioned is around anomaly detection.
I said I don't want to talk about security, but if you force me, we can. So. Go ahead, explain it.
I would love to talk about security. That's what I'm thinking as you're describing all of this, who can talk to who, and seeing what traffic is actually happening, and when the environments start to sort of blur together. Dev is talking to prod. I'm thinking my security team would be cheering right now, hearing that we have a tool that can tell them stuff like this, because that data is so hard to discern. How can you tell that Dev is talking to prod? Well, you're analyzing NetFlow and you're looking at your network connections, and is the Windows firewall even permit that? And if I just have a source of truth that can answer that question with a yes or no, I think the security team would cheer.
I agree.
So that's wonderful.
I didn't want to take focus out
of
the CMDB discussion, but I think this is even more appealing, maybe to some extent, just talking about the security. What makes people not sleep at night. So our approach was originally to focus on the IT persona, but we tried to bridge the gap between IT teams and security personas in organizations, because it all combines, and we are going towards an era where everything is going to be consolidated with, I would say, AI, but AI has to be utilized properly to provide actual value, and it has to rely on data.
AI without the right data will just make the same mistakes that people make.
Exactly. So that's why we developed our security module, which comprises of multiple features from SSL certificate tracking and analysis, as Ofer mentioned, but also external traffic, knowing all the external connectivity, what's talking with our environment and all the external connections from my environment, while providing the ability to set up different policies, so we can be the source of truth for identifying and detecting different connections that shouldn't be there. But we try to combine all the information and network analysis that we've done towards, I would say, anomaly detection, which is autonomous, and it's based on AI. But AI is actually the engine that can give us the accuracy, I would say, at scale.
And we've tried all kinds of things for anomaly detection in the past, and it's given lots of false positives, and it was very hard to,
I don't know a product that can actually give you real-time.
I mean, there are products, but they're usually based on
agents.
Things like either agents or deep packet inspection, which is
in the NDR domain. Yeah.
It's definitely not for the mid-market. They usually won't have those tools. And even for the large enterprise, getting full visibility of a network using deep packet inspection it's crazy, getting that much data.
And you usually want to do it on the entire environment.
Getting a network tap on everything could
be chaotic. So we developed Lighthouse AI. Lighthouse AI was launched recently as well. Which is one of the things that we are more proud of, to bring those security personas in to Faddom. It basically allows the team to detect, to be aware of any type of traffic anomaly that Faddom is able to detect using AI. We had a very successful POC, and now it's in rollout, so we are collecting more and more feedback before it will be out for the public, but it's there yet.
And it's basically going to find anything out of the ordinary.
From ROG devices, I would say, DDoS attacks, man in the middle, all sorts of attacks and lateral movement detection in the context of the critical infrastructure and business application maps. So it's not just like showing you tons of vulnerabilities without context. It's showing you have vulnerabilities, somebody is able to exploit this server with this vulnerability. Shadow IT, you left this door open at night. We have server with little to no traffic.
There's so many servers that people forget about that they use for some project, and then that project's over, but they're not going to go to the IT team. Hey, I'm done with this. So you can shut it off.
Remove it. Right.
No one does that. It just remains up, and then no one knows what it does, like the server in the closet. It's there, and they're going to be afraid to shut it down. So we know what every server is doing on the network. If we see a server that all it's doing is syncing its clock over NTP, this server looks like it's not doing very much. And you can probably, we look back a month and you see this is all it's been doing. You can probably shut it down and you're okay.
Right.
That's exactly what I'm thinking of. Is there's a compromised machine, and the next step is, well, what do? I probably want to quarantine it or shut it off or do something to get it off the network and remove the threat. But what's going to break when I do it? And that's always tribal knowledge. Every company I've ever worked at, that's something. It lives in someone's head, or it's in a document somewhere that's on a SharePoint, and being able to answer that decisively when we quarantine this, nothing will break because we have another server that handles the same services. That is powerful. Or you know exactly what will break, and you can make that qualified decision. I think that's fantastic.
You mentioned Lighthouse as being your anomaly detection for security, but I think you mentioned another AI
so we have
component
Compass AI
earlier. What was that
for querying Compass AI for querying your infrastructure in plain language. So you don't need to be an expert on your infrastructure. That's exactly about the tribal knowledge that somebody doesn't really know the infrastructure very well. He's either new to the organization, either it's like an M&A use case.
I think also the AI, the natural language chat feature.
Yeah.
It really helps bringing in users who may not be experts on Faddom. They may not you can bring in more people from the organization, and they will be able to
get value
quick, and get an answer to every question, and everything there is exportable as well.
Yeah.
So that and if you want to get an Excel file of all the servers, all my vulnerable servers that have FTP port open, that's a very short query away.
Okay, and it's a read-only setup, so they wouldn't be able to modify any of the existing infrastructure. This is purely query and find out information, Faddom, and then go to someone and be like, "Here, I found this out."
It's a platform that is currently kind of read-only. We can't break anything. We will see everything, but we're not good. That's what allows us to deploy very quickly and get value very quickly, because we know that they know their environment is safe. They're only giving us read credentials, and we can't break anything. And I think that's one of the reasons that we can get value very fast. We may add more things in the future
I think that for Compass, I can share our thoughts in terms of the product department and what we envisioned together, Ofer and I, that we wanted to launch Compass for getting people to get to know their infrastructure easily and ask those things that sometimes it's hard even to navigate in a product that you are not yet familiar with. So you can get value right away just by asking. But the reason that we launched it, I would say, without the ability to do actions on the infrastructure, is that because we want to wait for feedback. Our approach is always like get out with all the most important stuff that will get you will get value to our users, while collecting the feedback and iterating and rethinking and evaluating. So we are very much open-minded for the day, but we don't feel confident that AI can actually do that tomorrow morning. We have to be responsible here before we are giving access to the database or to any other hypervisor, vCenter.
AIs can still make mistakes, and I think
so are humans. It's a good discussion, but
IT has been a late adopter of AI, I think, and probably for good reason, because if a mistake there can cost a lot of money, and
we think it's early for that, and we don't want to be being the product that is responsible for breaking anything. So we rather wait until we're confident.
That makes perfect sense.
So if someone is trying to sum up key takeaways from this episode, what are 3 things that you would like our listeners to walk away with when they think about Faddom?
Somebody has a problem or is concerned that they're not well familiar with their environment. They are lacking visibility, documentation. It doesn't really matter what is the reason, if it's a mandatory in the organization or they're just dedicating too much time for something that it's static and it doesn't really work for them. So first of all, we provide free trial. They can definitely try it to see the discovery, to start seeing traffic and build those application maps in Faddom. We are, I would say, context providers. So we try to bring people to the right areas that they should focus on, whether it's for change management, alerts and notifications, help them with microsegmentation project, migration, data center transformation, and even with security. So we mentioned Lighthouse AI real quick about anomaly detection, and Compass AI, just like you don't have to be an expert in Faddom or in your infrastructure. So instant value about knowing what you have, protect what Faddom sees, and stop the guesswork, I would say.
Yeah, I think even as an enabler for upcoming, when AI agents are available, kind of talking about a bit more of the vision forward,
right?
To have that actual data infrastructure so that AI agents will be able to make the right decisions. I think that's also something that we're really looking at.
For sure.
So I think that's also the whole kind of bridging the gap between the IT teams and security teams. That is, where the security teams are always looking for, where what's going to break, where are people going to attack for, and the IT teams are there looking at the here and now. What do I have to fix right now? And I think having that whole context and a dependency map can really help the teams work, collaborate.
And it's also complementary to external tools or platform that look from the outside inside, but we look from the inside out. So helping security teams to detect lateral movement using the anomaly detection and act as an internal ASM, practically internal attack surface management solution. to help them detect what matters, where they are exposed, and how somebody, an attacker, an intruder, can reach to their crown jewels within the application maps built in Faddom. I think that's exactly where we're bridging the gap, documenting everything, mapping everything, and identifying lateral movement.
I think finally, any kind of modernization project,
For sure.
anything that is proactive, anything that you are planning that you want to do.
Proactively.
Proactively. Not something that, something broke, I need to fix it, but I want to improve my firewall rules. I want to plan a migration. I want to implement microsegmentation, or any kind of thing that's proactive. Visibility is key, and you need to know exactly what you're going to affect so you can plan effectively and get results quickly.
Yeah, I was involved in many large migration projects while I was a cloud consultant, and I can attest to the need for good visibility. If folks are interested in learning more, what's the best place to go on the internet?
I would say Faddom.com. That's pretty straightforward. They can just browse for Faddom. We also offer a demo, so they can sign up for a demo, or they can just download the product, which probably the more.
We have a free version available, community edition. If you've got small IT environments, you can.
Oh, that's for sure. That's how we bring back. But the two call to actions, I would say, if you go to the website, you can either see a demo, you can download Faddom, start it yourself. It's very easy and intuitive. It's a very much SaaS-like experience, even though it's an on-prem product. Spin up a VM, connect your data source, start mapping. And as Ofer mentioned, the community edition, we want to give back. And we know that there are so many IT professionals and cyber professionals that just want to test things in their own lab environment, whether it's in home or they have a lab environment at home. So up to 50 servers, we don't charge anything. Just use our product, experience it, enjoy it. And we are even providing support by email, if I'm not mistaken. So you can reach out to us and enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, Ofer and Itamar, thank you so much for being guests today on Day 2 DevOps, and thank you for sponsoring the show.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks again to our guests for being on Day 2 DevOps. Kyler and I love bringing Day 2 DevOps to you, dear listener, and sponsors help make this whole thing possible. So virtual high fives to Faddom and virtual high fives to you, dear listener, for tuning in. If you have suggestions for future shows, we would love to hear about them. You can hit either of us up on LinkedIn or send some feedback via packetpushers.net/follow-up.
If you just can't get enough of me and Ned, why don't you join us for our monthly live stream? One Friday out of every month, we jump on YouTube and LinkedIn Live for an hour and chat about recent episodes, current ideas, and anything else on our minds. Stop by, ask questions, and give us some feedback. Subscribe to the Packet Pushers YouTube channel to get notified.
Until next time, just remember that doing DevOps is awesome, and so are you.